Hello there again, and welcome to Unit 11, which is a companion animals section that I put together and added to the class a few years ago. We tend to get lots of questions on what is appropriate to feed your companion animals out there, and I'm primarily focused on dogs and cats at this point in time. So, a real brief section here of just 5 slides, just some basic guidelines on feeding your companion. First slide talks about here just simply choosing feeds, and we've spent a section on briefly on reading feed labels and what's required to be on them, and that extends to your pet foods. The labels are no different. The label requirements and laws are no different when you talk about pet foods. It's not that we come up with some special requirements once we're feeding a dog and cat. So make sure that you go review and educate yourself on how to read those feed label ingredients. The label requirements follow those that we've discussed earlier on. Almost all pet food rations are complete diets, so mixing your own is really rather impractical. You're not going to go out and put together a TMR for your dog or cat, and really understand that them getting table scraps and which is a ration that's different every day and offered in different ways every day is maybe not the best approach for a good healthy dog or cat. Some keys in terms of product naming. There are some labeling rules here that are a little bit different for an ingredient to be used in the name of a product. So if you use beef, for example, in the name of a product, it has to be about 95% of that product to be named in the ingredient. When you turn over the bag or look at the feed tag, the ingredients are named in order of quantity, and really that's only for animal origin products. But that's mainly true most of the time. Most feed companies list their ingredients from first to last in order of inclusion rate in the diet. So, for example, a dog food that's labeled beef and potatoes dog kibbles must use at least 85 to 95% beef in order for them to legally put beef on the tag or on the bag label. Any product that contains with in the label has to include at least 3% of that listed product. So again, another example, sparkle and shine dog food with cheese has to have a minimum of 3% cheese in the diet. They just can't throw those labels on a tag or on a bag for a marketing perspective all the time and then just have no problem and actually not have any of that ingredient in there or a very, very small amount, even though 3% is not very much. So understand that a lot of that is a marketing ploy as much as anything that appeals to you more so than your dog or cat. Ultimately, it's all about nutrients and digestibility, not necessarily about the ingredients. You find that true with a lot of different things that we've talked about through the class, but again, that's bottom line what's important to your dog and cat. Some ingredients lead to improved digestibility, and proper daily nutrient needs need to be met with, can be met with a variety of ingredients. There's a lot of discussion over whether corn should be part of a dog food diet. Well, corn processed properly isn't that unhealthy for a dog to eat. And if you've ever spilled just regular shelled corn on the ground before, I've seen plenty of dogs go up and eat at it, and they really don't have a problem eating it most of the time. So processed properly, you can meet a lot of daily nutrient needs with a corn-based or a vegetable-based diet for your dog and cat. So again, some of that I would recommend being intelligent about and educating yourself as a customer, and then also watching your dog and cat and how they perform, how they look, how they respond to a feed tells you a lot about what you should be feeding. So you don't necessarily have to have a salmon and chicken and steak in the diet for those dogs and cats to do well. Caloric statements, again, those are voluntarily supplied by the manufacturer. So if you see things that are labeled light, reduced calorie, or less fat, then you do see some guidelines apply. They do have to have some kind of reduced caloric density in order for a company to label those as such. They can't just slap that light or reduced calorie on the feed bag, on the cat food can, and then not change the diet at all. There are some guidelines that way in order to cut down on caloric density, but I would encourage you to take the normal regular maintenance feed bag or feed can and turn it over and look at the fat and energy content that's in there and compare it to the light diet and see how much of a reduced caloric density there is. Just educate yourself on what's there in that manner. Too many customers simply buy dog and cat foods based upon the commercials they see on television or what bag looks the most appealing when they go to the pet food store. They don't necessarily purchase it based upon what's in it all the time, and whether they think it will actually work. And then, of course, you've got lots of pet owners out there that buy based upon cost. Whatever's the cheapest, that's what they buy. And I'm not necessarily degrading that or recommending that. The cheaper ingredients also are less digestible, which leads to more landmines in the yard, so to speak. So make sure that you understand what's out there in terms of choosing your feeds and how they will perform with your dog and your cat or whatever else you're feeding. Other keys: anything that is labeled premium or gourmet or anything along that line is very simply marketing. There is absolutely zero regulatory standard on making those claims. So it's that's somebody's marketing department going to work there and seeing if they can drive dog food sales up by 10% or cat food sales up by 10% by slapping that buzzword on that can or bag of feed and seeing if you will bite and buy more of it. If you fed generally those things, comparing apples to apples, you'll generally see no difference in your dog or cat performance. So there's basically no regulation on that at all. Also, when you look at organic, it may appear on the label, but there's right now not any agreement on what constitutes organic in terms of pet food. What percentage of the ingredients have to be organic in order for them to put organic on the label? And I would say that extends to GMO free. So there's really no agreement there and therefore no regulation. Now, the other thing to keep in mind, pet foods that contain ingredients that are human quality or human grade is considered misleading unless all the ingredients would pass regulation for human consumption. So you pick some of the very, very high-end pet food products out there that portray that we're feeding things that you and I might eat. That isn't necessarily the case in what's actually going into the dog or cat food. Those aren't human grade feeds necessarily. They're in there. Otherwise, they would be in the human food chain because they would fetch a lot more return on investment than putting them into pet foods. So again, some of that is a simple marketing ploy to get you to buy it and have the perception that it's much higher in quality. Now, I have no doubt that a more expensive dog or cat food does perform differently, and if you've ever tried different dog or cat foods and watch how your cat looks or your dog looks in terms of hair coat color, hair coat growth, the amount of energy that they have, there are some distinct differences, and I would encourage you to think about what you might want to spend, because there's a wide range of price points in dog and cat food products and pet food products in general. So find what you want to see your dog or cat look like, see how they consume it, and then decide at what price point that you're willing to invest. And some guys like the $8 50-pound bag of just standard generic dog or cat food that they can buy at the local elevator, and some don't mind spending $50 on a bag of 35 or 40-pound bag of dog or cat food. So make sure that you understand what you're getting into whenever you go up the price point ladder. Take home messages: again, consider ingredient and product quality. Flip that bag over and look at the ingredients and the feed tag, know what you're buying, and then understand and know the feeding rates, because we tend to overfeed dogs and cats pretty regularly. So match that ration with your desires to cost, and how much you're willing to budget on a weekly or monthly basis to feed that companion animal that you love so much. And then realize that some of the wording on pet food labels, like we said, is simply marketing and doesn't necessarily reflect accurately on how the ration will perform, what is maybe even actually in it, or what it might do. So keep those few things in mind as we're out there very simply looking at some of the companion animal nutrition programs. So I hope this section enlightened you a little bit on terms of what we might feed dogs and cats and other companion animals out there. And you have some good questions, bringing them to class. Be ready for Kahoot and your muddiest points. Even though there's only 5 slides in the section, you might be able to ask a few good questions in class. So we'll see you then.